Welcome to It's Personal Finance Canada. I'm Christine Conway.
And I'm Cameron Conway.
And this podcast is a very personal look at personal finance in Canada. Welcome to It's Personal Finance Canada. I'm Christine Conway, here with Cameron Conway. And if you're in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, or the Yukon, feel free to find us at Braun Financial, braunfinancial.com. This week, we took a look at FP Canada's Financial Stress Index for 2025.
Yeah, well, Christine was going through this nice and informative doc, but I was at the dentist, so I get to do my best Jean Chrétien impersonation today until my face wakes back up.
Oh my goodness. You know what? It has been a week and a half in a week, and we're a little bit behind, so I'm heading to the island later, and this is kind of our only chance to get this thing done, to get it out on time. So unfortunately for Cam, lots of love to Cam. He's agreed to do this anyways. Mouth half open, I suppose, doing the best we can.
Well, of course, the truth is the truth.
Aww.
90s callback.
So let's look at what this is and who is the source. This is a resource that was sanctioned by FP Canada. And FP Canada, previously known as the Financial Planning Standards Council, this is the organization that provides oversight and regulation to certified financial planners. So if anyone has that CFP mark after their name, they are beholden to FP Canada. I've held a designation with them in good standing since 2009. They have tons of great research and tons of great articles and product pieces, well, not product pieces, but information pieces out there for consumers about the value of advice and how financial planners can actually help. But this was something a little bit different. And the reason I wanted to get into this today is it so very clearly shows us the state of affairs. What are Canadians going through right now in 2025 as things have changed? So this was an online survey, like I said, done by Ledger. It was done in January 2025, so a little bit before the chaos that we're experiencing right now. And it was just over 2,000 Canadians over the age of 18 that had responded.
Yeah, so the plan today is to go through this report and get a better understanding of kind of what's going on in like the quote unquote average Canadian family. Plus or minus 5 or 10% kurtosis mean, all kinds of fancy buzzwords that have to do with statistics that a lot of people don't understand. But we want to figure out like what is like the main sources of stress on the money side, on the relationship side, or whatever it is, and where the problem points are. And there's a few really kind of interesting data points that kind of tell a very large story throughout this whole report.
Well, that's right. There's a lot of very interesting data points in here. So there's not going to be a lot of original content from us here today. I really want to do this justice and go over the questions as they're stated and go over the responses as they appear, because I think that's the best way to stay true to the original content. So let's start with one of my favorite questions. And this was fantastic in my mind because it's not leading at all. It's question 2 on the survey. And it says, in general, what tends to cause you the most stress in your life?
Is it being asked to answer surveys?
I certainly hope not. We might have some problems if it is. So money was an option, but so were other things. The other categories included personal health. It included relationships, and it included things like work stress. And what do you think, Cam, was the most common answer?
Work stress.
Probably. But why do we work, Cam? Why do we work?
To make the people in relationship happy by spending money.
Oh my goodness. We all need to work to make money, right? So money was actually reported as the greatest stressor. And what was done in this particular survey is it gave us a few data points. It divided the households that responded by their income. So we had a category of households that were earning less than $50,000. And another category that was between $50,000 and $100,000. And then the last category was income over $100,000. So for the lower income households, those under $50,000, it makes sense. 52%, so just over half, were saying money is causing me the most stress in my life. But what was interesting to me was even in the other brackets. So for the mid bracket, 42% still listed this as a major stressor. And even for households with over $100,000, 37% said money was a great source of stress. So that right there tells us making more money is not always the answer if your lifestyle creeps up right along with it, right? Because if it's going out the door as fast as you earn it, and if you now have greater pressure to sustain this lifestyle that you've created, even if you're in that six-figure club, it can still be difficult to maintain.
Yes, the black hole of expenses will grow exponentially in proportion to your income.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Well, and if we look at the other areas, and answering this question again of what causes you the most stress in life, personal health was next across all the categories, and they were divided by age as well, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. 21%. Relationship stress was 17%, and work stress another 17%.
So if you add all four of those categories together, you have a well-balanced poor depression diet?
Oh, no. Well, no, but this lets us know a couple things, right? Like this lets us know that across the board, the stress is real. It's letting us know before we even get into the detail about expenses. Everybody knows their expenses are up right now, right? And wages may not be. And for people that are in retirement, because we do have that age division in this survey, we've got the people in working age between 18 and 54. And then we have the other category, 55 plus, which a lot of those will be retired. Now, if you did your retirement income projections without the expectation of the last 6 years and inflation being what it was, and now it's been much greater, you might have to reevaluate your spending. You might have to reevaluate the longevity of your assets, of your investments, to make sure that they can still do what you thought they would do in a more normalized environment.
Yeah, and kind of all throughout the survey, it is a very, very clear divide kind of between that 18 to 54 bracket and that 55 plus bracket, where one side is dramatically more stressed and more worried, more burnt out, and all kinds of other negative descriptors more than the other. Like even just kind of going behind the scenes with us in the podcast, like 80+% of our viewers and listeners fall into this 18 to 54 bracket because they want to learn and grow and hopefully overcome the what feels to be increasing mountain of problems that we are kind of dealing with right now.
Well, that's exactly it. This is becoming a generational problem. And those divides are so important in the responses because when people in that 18 to 54 age category answered the question, finances don't cause me stress, only 8% agreed with that statement. Whereas in that 55 plus category, 33% were saying, okay, my finances are not stressing me out. Now, of course, the flip side of that means that a lot more people are stressed, but let's use the rest of this survey to zero in and find out where that stress is coming from. Why are people struggling? And more importantly, what we can do about it.
Yeah, and if you want to kind of follow along with this, I will post a link in the show notes to where you can go get this report yourself and you kind of see what is going on. And you get to kind of determine yourself which one of all these brackets do you fit into and what can you do now about it. So I guess we kind of go through the next set of questions, right?
Absolutely. And they had a PowerPoint presentation, and the flow of this show very closely follows the flow of that presentation because it was just so well thought out, and there's a lot of integrity there in the original data. So like I said, today we are just preserving what was built for us and sharing that information rather than putting our own spin on it as we usually do.
So you're saying the PowerPoint presentation has no star wipe fades in it?
You know what? It's more straight data points, but this is what we're used to when we work in finance, right? We don't get the glittery stuff anymore, do we?
No, we just get many different colored lines that go up and down all the time.
Is the glittery stuff when the market explodes?
Or collapses. It depends on the day.
So let's get into the detail. Let's break down where the stress is coming from. So if people are saying money is a big source of stress, it's causing concern for me in my relationships, and we'll see other data points about that after. How is this breaking down? 47% of the respondents that were in that age 18 to 54 category said that bill payments and expenses were causing them stress. And that is incredibly interesting to me because, bills are a part of regular life, right? And almost half of the respondents in this survey are saying paying my basic bills this is starting to get stressful. Now, older people in the 55 plus category, only 23% said the same. So this was really interesting when you're summarizing these surveys because the average for that category was 37%. But as you can see, it's disproportionate in favor of the younger people because they are feeling more stress.
Yes, this is the ever-going conflict in statistics about median and mean and chasing all those fancy tails.
We like tails and distributions. But as it goes, the next financial stressor for people in that 18 to 54 age category was retirement. Am I doing enough? So let's categorize it. If 47% of people in this age category are saying, man, my bills are stressing me out, and another 40%, or the same 40% possibly, are saying, I'm not sure if I'm saving enough for retirement. That's telling me a couple things. That's telling me we are worried if we can live and eat and have this standard of living that we want now. And we're worried about the future. Can we continue with this same standard of living later?
Yeah, I think with the way this report is done up, it is the and or. So it's 47% is worried about their bills and 40% are worried about their retirement. There's probably a lot of overlap going on between it.
I'm sure there is as well. Well, and it continues on saying that 40% in this age category are the stress is around saving for a major planned purchase. So this is something that you know you're going to have to address soon, but where is the money going to come from? If the bills are stacking up and I know I need to save for retirement and now I've got to fund this repair or I've got to buy a new vehicle, it's another thing, right? And like you can say, the stress is starting to mount. So it's really interesting when you look at it from this perspective. Other items that were on the list were things like job and income instability and investing and lack of control. And for that age category of 18 to 54-year-olds, job income and instability was only concerning to about 32% of the respondents. Investing, only 18%, maybe a little bit more now, given what roller coaster we've all been on.
Yes, a gentle disclaimer. This was done in probably like mid-January. This was done.
Yeah, exactly. So days away, a month away from...
We'll call it 6 weeks away.
From what would be unleashed, right? The beautiful innocence that they were at the time. But this is good because, like I said, these are not leading questions. And I want to get into another question that distilled it down a little bit more for us. And this is question 8 in the report, and it said, what, if any, external forces are having a direct impact on your financial related stress? And there are some comparisons to previous years that we're not going to get into in this show, just to kind of keep it simple, because we're already throwing a ton of numbers at you. But let's look at the element of expenses.
Yes, we know it's April. We know tax deadline's coming up, and there's a lot of numbers floating around already, so we're trying to be gentle right now. Pay your taxes.
We're trying to be kind, but sometimes life isn't, right? And let's see what topped the list of external forces that were having a direct impact on financial-related stress. The big one, Cam, can you guess?
I'm pretty sure it has to do with food and the ever-growing cost of it every single place you go.
And it's funny because regardless of your age, grocery prices were top of the list, 64% and 66%, or pardon me, 64% average, 66% and 61% respectively for those two age categories. Now, this is huge because this is not a discretionary item. Of course, there are choices and points of decision that you can make when you're shopping, but there are a certain amount of staples, like you have to have a baseline of food, right? To keep everything running, to keep your family fed, to keep everybody healthy and happy.
Yes, you don't want to kind of downgrade from drinking milk and go back down to milk.
No. Or, I mean, even with StatsCan stuff that we'd looked at before in their CPI basket, where there were substitutions occurring, where maybe we're not getting that pack of beef, maybe we're looking at hot dogs or whatever it might have been, right? Meat is not meat. It's not always a fair one-to-one comparison. And certain items are priced a lot higher than others. And I mean, I know for myself, last time I went to the grocery store and I looked at the price of a steak, I'm like, this feels like a restaurant price, but I have to cook it myself. And also I'm sitting in my house. And also that's a lot for one meal. So it's...
Yes, well, we know that our grocery prices have gone up because we've got 2 kids, but I don't think our 2-year-old and 4-year-old justify the almost doubling of we pay every single week.
But the point is, we're all in this categorically together, and we are all feeling this pinch on grocery prices in a way that a few years ago, like who would have thought, right? Now, next on the list was inflation. And that was rated at 56% for those in the 18 to 54 age category and 50% for those age 55.
Yeah, it's kind of an even attack like on both of them where both sides feel if you go into retirement, you are just anticipating, if you go with like a CFP, you do your proper planning, a lot of people factor in like a 2 or 3% kind of steady inflation. They weren't expecting like double digit over and over and over time inflation in a very compressed amount of time. So this hits everyone and inflation. This is kind of like an and or thing with the grocery list also.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, in our practice, we use FP Canada's, they come out every year with assumption guidelines, which gives us parameters for what we can use in long-term projections. And you're absolutely right, Cam. In a long-term projection, inflation of 2 to 3% is considered to be reasonable. But we have stepped into such a bizarro situation that is outside of the norm that it's changed what normal had been prior. Next on the list, and this just continues to blow my mind. So we've hit groceries, we've hit inflation, gas prices. That's next. And this is a concern for 43% of those ages 18 to 54 and 37% of 55. But look at the impact on gas prices, right? Like you need that to go to work. You need that to do any activities outside of the house if you're not in a cycling or walkable distance from the activity that you're trying to do. And it's outside of people's control. So you can't immediately change your work patterns. You can't immediately, I mean, some activities you can change, but depending on what they are, these are things that as prices go up, we have to just adjust and accept it. And I think that's the core of what makes this so hard.
Yeah, and part of the problem is that people adjust to this by just staying home and driving down the economy and just perpetuates this continuing cycle of high prices and low growth. I think they call this stagflation. Now I keep hearing that word again over and over again lately. It's not very good.
Well, and categorically for rent, mortgage, and housing, which were lumped together in a big title heading and then subdivided a little bit further, 66% of those 18 to 54 said this is an external force that is having an impact on my financial related stress. 66% and 35% of those 55 plus. So if there is anything that identifies this generational gap, this difference between people born in certain ages versus earlier, later, this describes it perfectly.
Yeah. So again, here we're seeing that 2/3 of people kind of below 55 are worried and stressed about being able to pay for their housing. Over 55, it's down to 1/3. Groceries, again, 2/3 are worried. So you kind of have this trifecta going of people are worried and struggling with food prices, house prices, transportation prices. So it's very easy to see why there's such a high skew towards this younger demographic being generally stressed and having mental struggles, which we'll see in a later question.
Absolutely. And these, again, are fundamental essentials for our basic well-being as humans, right? We need a place to live. We need that roof over our head. We need an address for things like school, for things like getting a job. It's so important to have this information. It's so important to have a place to call home. So as this goes, this matters. This matters a lot. And like I said, it might have been the difference between housing affordability for a generation that's now a little bit older versus those that are starting out or in their working career now. Or even, because I mean, Cam and I are at that age where we're kind of right on the fence of where it was, right? Where some people pursued higher education and felt behind because they didn't get into the real estate market. And some people jumped in right away and feel like kings because it appreciated so well over this crazy, chaotic period that we've seen very, very recently. So what are some of the key takeaways so far? I would say, number one, if you are going through this, you are absolutely not alone. It has gotten so much materially harder to stretch a dollar than it has been in the past. And I think the companies are feeling this too, right? And a lot of these price points are being passed on to us, the end users, the consumers, because of things like tariffs, because of things like inflation, even because of gas prices and distribution and these transit channels where you have to actually move the goods and services to where they need to go.
Yeah, it's just kind of the snowball effect on all these things where it just keeps pushing prices higher and higher. And it's just kind of this self-perpetuating machine. And people are just struggling to figure out what to do. So people are cutting back expenses. They're changing their food diet. They're changing where they work, where they live. And it just feels harder and has in a couple generations just to kind of make the ends meet and deal with the basic necessities. So it makes it harder to live, makes it harder to plan out investing, it makes it harder to do a lot of things when the bare necessities is such a struggle for a overwhelming number of people. Like we're looking at like the 2/3 to 3/4 of people in like the sub-retirement age bracket.
Well, and keep in mind that these are people mostly in this age category that have jobs, that are actively pursuing their careers and earning an income. And the thing that scares me the most from all of these statistics, I mean, things like food insecurity, housing insecurity, this is the stuff that can cause civil unrest. Like, this is the stuff that societies really should worry about when a lifestyle that we had lived in the past as children is no longer promised to us in the future, when there's no goal that feels achievable and we have to redefine what is important to us in a manner that is achievable. This is a complete shift of looking at lifestyle expectation. And I would take it back even further and say when you're struggling to buy food, I mean, anything else that you're wanting to accomplish is going to take a back seat, right? So all of our goals, hopes, and dreams have to be reprioritized to a certain extent if we find ourselves in this category. So I was thinking back to a conversation that we had in the office just this week, where we were looking at our 5-step plan, which is our new at Braun Financial way to help people get their finances organized for the first time. So it's not full financial planning, but it's guiding people through things like a simple budget, understanding their net worth, making sure they're protected on the insurance side, making sure that their investments are doing what they need to do, and goal setting. All of these things are so important. But budgeting is step one, and budgeting is so fundamental right now because really, like we've said in the past, when you look at all of your income sources and when you look at all of your expenses, you need to know how much of a margin is there. And if there's no margin there, if there's no regular amount that you can save, that's your ability to get ahead or accelerate your goals or to create a better future or even just reduce stress because now you can be prepared for emergencies and things as they come. So this is the place where people are today. And they're feeling like they're having to go back to the basics. They're having to reevaluate their lifestyle choices. They're having to reevaluate where their money is going, even at the higher household income levels. Because like we said right at the beginning of the show, 37% of households earning over $100,000 are stressed about money, and that's their number one concern, according to this survey.
Yeah, we've kind of talked about like how you are in that sub 55. The plan usually is you just cut your expenses and work harder. But at the same time, there are a growing number of retirees looking to get back into the workforce part-time or on small contract, and just same thing, having to cut expenses because they did not anticipate a higher inflation and the pandemic, which drove prices down in the stock market, and then a recession, and now another self-imposed recession. So those are 3 big hits in a handful of years. So it's kind of across the board. People are having to reevaluate what they are doing with their money and having to be a lot more specific and determined in where every single one of those little gold coins go.
Oh, for sure. Well, and going to classic financial planning equations, it's that make more or spend less, exactly what you were just saying, Cam. Or if you're trying to prepare for retirement, it's saving a higher percentage now or working longer. But how do you save a higher percentage of your income when you're already struggling to meet your bills? This is the catch-22. So this is where it starts to materially impact the generations. Our ability to retire, our ability to be prepared as we go into retirement, even at age 65, and we'll reopen this conversation of, is 65 going to be the number going forward? I don't know. It's only been a few years into this right now, but we'll see how things develop over time. We'll see where the new normal lands and what this all looks like. So, I mean, that's not a very cheery picture. And the next part of this from FP Canada talked about the impact that all of this was having on mental health. And the question that they asked was, to what extent do you agree or disagree with the following statement? I have lost sleep because of financial worries. And the overall number across the board between the age categories was 49%. So half of us are losing sleep over money. But it was disproportionate again when we broke it down by age category. In the 18 to 54 age bracket, almost 60%, 59%, whereas only 35% of those 55 plus answered that statement positively. And of course, household income plays into this as well. And there's other nuance there, but still almost half of us, regardless of age, are in some level of agreement with that statement.
Yeah, and wherever there is sleep problems because of stress, then there's inevitably stress in other areas, which is like a big part of the next question here, where it shows like what is the true mental toll that people are taking because of this.
Yeah, the actual question here is, how has financial stress impacted your life? And in the age bracket of 18 to 54, 68% of people said it had an impact. 48% in that age category made reference to anxiety, depression, or mental health challenges directly as a result of financial stress. 26% said they were distracted at work or had reduced productivity, and that has implications across the whole economy. Another 22% in that age category said there were marriage or relationship problems or family arguments, disputes, they said, because of it. And another 7% said there was substance use directly as a result. So this is wild. It is a clear cause and effect line that is trying to be drawn through this survey, saying that yes, our finances are that important to us, that they affect our marriage, they affect our relationship, they affect our desire to get where we're wanting to go. And when we feel unable to do that, the natural progression is anxiety or depression or mental health challenges. Because like we've said in the past, your brain is trying to solve a problem that feels unsolvable of how do I keep ahead? How do I make more money if I feel like I can't, if I'm in circumstances that make me feel stuck? And it is crazy to me when only 28% in this age category were saying there was no negative impact at all. So like I said earlier, if this is not a generational problem, I don't know what is. It is completely wild.
So I guess in a dark way, the biggest lesson I learned today is to focus my investments into grocery stores and drug companies.
Which actually is a strategy that does well in these times, funny enough. But you're right, sign of the times, right? It's where people's money is going, and where money flows, profit margins tend to be. Even in grocery stores that are meant to be a low profit margin businesses, not always as it seems. So what is stopping people? I'm going to move on to question 19 in this, which is saying, when you're thinking about obstacles preventing you from taking control of your financial situation, the question was, to what extent do you agree or disagree with the following? And again, we'll do it by category. I am burdened by the high cost of living, which included housing, groceries, and gas prices. All of those things we talked about prior. 75% of those 18 to 54 agreed with this, and 58% of those 55 plus agreed. The next one surprised me a little bit. It said, I am afraid of making the wrong financial decision. 61% of those 18 to 54 and 39% of those 55 plus. And this amazed me because we are at a time in history where we all have more information than we've ever had before and greater access to basically anything you want to know or learn about.
Well, I think part of it's coming down to the big decision of, do I want to prepay my mortgage or do I want to skip 1 or 2 days of food a day?
Ouch. Yeah, no, but it's true. It's an uncomfortable reality. And that actually went into the next point was after paying necessary bills and expenses, i.e. rent, food, mortgage, transportation, I don't have enough money to save, invest, or pay down debt. And that by category was 60% of those respondents aged 18 to 54 and 39% of those 55 plus. Now, some people prioritized other aspects of life over finances, and that's totally fine. But almost 53% of those in the lower age category said they procrastinated due to the stress or anxiety of all of this. And an overwhelming 50% of those in the lower age category said, I avoid thinking about my financial situation because it feels overwhelming. So people are looking for ways to reduce financial stress. Some given in the survey were tracking expenses, paying down debt, saving more, creating a budget, receiving advice from a professional, focusing on their finances, building a financial plan. There was even meditation and mindfulness in there, that kind of thing, and getting a job. And those were all prioritized in order. But I think the real solution, and again, remember the source of this survey, FP Canada, the body that regulates and oversees certified financial planners in Canada. The solution, as they describe it, is that those who work with a financial planner feel significantly better. And they have data, tons of it, that shows have greater progress over time and feel more hopeful about their financial future than those that are trying to do it themselves. And there's all kinds of financial professionals, from financial planners to investment professionals to insurance professionals. All of us do something a little bit different. So understanding the type of help you need and where to go to get it is so important. As always, for financial planning work, we encourage people to work with a certified financial planner because that's the gold standard here in Canada. And I think it's great to know that you now have the backing of an organization like FP Canada that is kind of looking over the professional shoulder, making sure they meet the educational requirements, making sure they're staying current, and making sure that they're following all the guidelines and regulations.
Making sure they're not just some AI bot.
Making sure they're a real human. And of course, if you'd like to work with us at Braun, feel free to find us at Braun Financial, braunfinancial.com.
And one more thing before we go, if you're listening to this on Sunday night or Monday morning, remember to go out and vote, because if you don't vote, you're not allowed to complain.
Aww. Until next time, take care.
All the best.